Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lebanon City Council meeting for August 22nd. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mike Kincaid is absent tonight. Keith Campbell.
Here.
Morris Jones.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
There.
John Copeland.
Here.
Brent Weed.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any changes to those minutes? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve from Morris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Sierra. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, on to old business. There's nothing on my agenda. Is there anything from council? Okay, new business then. First item up is Ordinance 2022-25, which is a floodplain ordinance update. Derek Warren, and this ordinance is on first reading.
Good evening, Council. I see we're starting with the exciting stuff tonight, so hold on to your seats. I think most of you have been through this once before. About every 5 to 7 years, DNR sends us a new floodplain ordinance that they would like us to adopt. These are, for the most part, boilerplate ordinances that they have designed. We plug and play whichever community is adopting these ordinances, and that's about the difference between them. We work with the CRS program. Actually, DNR works with the CRS program, which is the community rating system, who is a department of FEMA. And they, working together with DNR and the CRS, we can craft these things to get ratepayers a discount on their flood insurance. So I will get to that in a minute, but let me give you kind of the highlights here. I won't bore you and read you word by word what the new ordinance, how the new ordinance reads, but it's very similar to the 2017-05, which was the last version that we adopted, and 2017-05 took the place of Ordinance 10-13. So a little bit about the background of the floodplain. We all hear that term, and the floodplain is made up of two different layers. Basically, the floodway, which includes the channel of the waterway and adjacent land areas, which in an unobstructed condition can discharge a 1% chance flood event or the 100-year flood. The flood fringe is the second part of the floodplain, and the flood fringe is the area between the floodway boundary and the floodplain boundary. This is also known as the 500-year flood fringe, or a 0.2% chance of a flood event in any given year. So the floodway is more restrictive, and the flood fringe is less restrictive. Floodway is falls underneath the DNR umbrella for any permitting. Flood fringe falls underneath the local jurisdiction for permitting. The regulations found in this ordinance are managed by the local floodplain administrator. And in the ordinance before you tonight, 2022-25, it is listed as the Deputy Director of the Planning and Zoning Administration, which happens to be myself. So I am the administrator. The purpose of the regulations in this ordinance is to help minimize further damage in a flooding event. Damage can be compounded by barriers which will unnaturally divert floodwaters or which may increase flood hazards to other lands. Some examples of that is improper and unapproved manipulation of topographical features in the floodplain can result in erosion that could potentially impede the natural flow of water or create a dam that can make the upstream flooding worse. And that's what a lot of this is, that the last part there can make the upstream flooding worse. And that's something we don't want to cause to our neighbors. A situation where we might not flood here, but because of things we've done, it floods out our neighbors. Structures constructed without proper flood proofing can increase damage in a flood event to the structure, or even worse, wash a structure off the foundation and into the waterway, increasing flooding upstream. So again, in all these courses and workshops that I go to, that the worst case scenario pictures are always, a mini barn or accessory structure, or a house that has been physically lifted off of the foundation and put into Prairie Creek, for example. And the next thing you know, Prairie Creek starts to back up more and more, and creates flooding problems, again, for our neighbors. Some of the changes in this ordinance from the last one are actually user-friendly. So DNR has submitted some things to us that make the document a whole lot easier for staff to use, and I believe it'll make it a whole lot easier for applicants to follow along when we start going over some of these regulations. Definitions being one of the biggest changes. They have clearly defined many of the terms used in the ordinance. Some examples are the accessory structures. It went from a one-paragraph section of the ordinance to now 3 sections with 3 subsections as well. So just much more robust. It includes pavilions, gazebos, decks, and carports in those definitions. Another definition is best available flood layer. So DNR encourages us as the local floodplain administrators to use the best available data, and sometimes DNR is a little bit ahead of FEMA as far as what they've surveyed. And DNR has a very robust website. It's the floodplain portal. If you ever get bored sometime at 2 o'clock in the morning and want to get on the floodplain portal, can be interesting, I suppose, if you're in this world. They've also added functionally dependent uses to the definition. So a functionally dependent use would be a use that requires to be next to a waterway. A wastewater treatment plant being an example of one, how it discharges into Prairie Creek. It's there for a reason, because it's the closest place for it to discharge. We have much better definitions of a lot of acronyms that they use. FEMA is all about the acronyms. I think the federal government is all about the acronyms. So we have LOMA, which is better defined, LOMAR, which is better defined, and a LOMAR-F. So a LOMA is a letter of map amendment. So certain things that happen at a property can create a situation where somebody can apply to get out of the floodplain. Letter of map revision is very similar, but it's initiated by DNR, not locals. And a LOMAR-F is a letter of map revision based on fill. So certain things like that have just, again, made it much easier for the administrator to navigate. Some of the other changes are pretty self-explanatory. Some things such as when we annex land into the city and it happens to be a studied area where there is a floodplain, those special flood hazard areas are automatically brought into the city without having to go to DNR to have them mapped into our floodplain maps. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of this stuff, but so finished construction. Two things that they've changed in finished construction that make it easier for the administrator is anytime you get into an addition where you're in the floodplain, whether it be the floodway or the flood fringe, flood-proofing measures are a requirement. And before, in the old ordinance, it was just stated as such. Flood-proofing measures can be waterproof materials or even foundation vents that look like crawl-space vents, but the foundation vents actually open when water starts to flow through them and allows that water to go into the crawl-space and through the crawl-space, avoiding the situation of having the structure washed off of the foundation and into the waterway. The flood-proofing certificate, which is now required, shall be prepared by or under the direct supervision of a registered professional engineer or architect and certified by the same, which is nice. That kind of takes the liability off of the administrator to say, yeah, these calculations are right, and it puts the onus on the applicant and a professional. The other one for finished construction is upon completion of construction of an elevated structure constructed on fill, a fill report is required to be submitted to the floodplain administrator to verify the required standards were met, including compaction. So the more you lift, the more compaction you have to have. So every foot you go up, you compact, and compact again, again, and again, until you get to where you're above the, the base flood elevation. which is about 832 feet above sea level here in the community of Lebanon. The other really nice update to this ordinance is Article 5 clearly defines the difference in permit procedures. As I mentioned earlier, floodway is regulated by DNR. So anytime somebody's in the floodway, they automatically go to DNR. We've historically sent them to DNR. It's not on print in the current ordinance, but it is in print on the update, which is nice. And then it also identifies the fringe as local jurisdiction. As I mentioned to you, this kind of couples together with the community rating system, the CRS, which if you visit our office over at the planning department, you'll see some plaques that we have hanging up. And currently we are at a CRS level 8, which that means anyone who has a floodplain policy, flood insurance, receives a 10% discount because of us adopting this ordinance and some of the reporting that I do throughout the year, some of the community engagement, some other requirements. We were at a level 7, which was a 15% discount, not our own fault dropping to an 8. It's the state of Indiana. If you research where we are with building code in Indiana, we are well behind the rest of the country for whatever reason. And because of that, we weren't able to meet some of the more modern building codes, which dropped us down from a 7, which 7 is the highest rating that any community in the state has, which would be a 15% discount, as I mentioned, down to an 8. So people of Lebanon are still getting a 10% discount. So, and it's all because of us having this ordinance, and again, some of the reporting that we do. At the end of 21, there were 704 acres in a SFHA, another one of those acronyms, Special Flood Hazard Area. So 704 acres in the city of Lebanon. We have 167 active policies. Since the inception of the National Flood Insurance Program in 1968, we've had 46 claims totaling $325,311 paid out. The high claim in that time was $31,741, and the low claim was $276. Can't quite wrap my head around that one. It must have been $276 above their premium, so, or their deductible, excuse me. We have 4 properties in the community since 1968 that have had repetitive loss, which is extremely low, so that's a good thing. So repetitive loss is what it sounds like. It's somebody who's had more than one claim. So with that, that's kind of the update in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you might have or address any concerns.
Any questions for Derek from the council? When's the last 100-year flood we had?
The last 100-year was 2012.
12?
Yes. We've come close a few times, but 2012, it came up out of, the Prairie Creek came up out of its banks in several places.
Yeah, I remember Bridge Road being blocked.
Yep, Indian Springs, that bend right there by Park Drive is pretty well the low spot in between the William Street Bridge and the Park Street Bridge. Fordyce Bridge is typically where it comes up out of the banks first, but once it gets going, you can definitely tell.
Yeah. Okay, Rob, I'll have you read it on first reading, and then we'll take it up at our next meeting. Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-25, again, concerns an ordinance to amend prior ordinance 2017-05. This council adopted ordinance 2017-05, an ordinance for flood hazard areas within the city. The council has considered the request for amendment and now wishes to repeal and replace ordinance 2017-05 in its entirety. The foregoing recitals are incorporated herein by reference. Section 2 addresses ordinance 2017-05 shall be repealed and replaced with this ordinance, and the floodplain management regulations that are attached as Exhibit A are incorporated within this ordinance. I won't go through Exhibit A, but Derek addressed it. Those are 29 pages that you've seen. Article 1 talks about the purpose and methods Article 2, as Derek indicated, is the definition section. Article 3 are the general provisions and what it applies. Article 4 addresses the administration. Article 5 deals with the provisions for flood hazard reduction and the standards that, again, Derek touched on. And then Article 6 is the miscellaneous legal status provisions for you. So that's first reading.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Any further discussion, comments from council? Any general public comment concerning the ordinance? Okay. Again, we will take that up for second reading at our next meeting, which will be September 12th. All right, next item, next items up, we have several utility ordinances tonight. So I'll have Ed and Sandra kick it off.
Good evening, City Council. As the mayor noted, we have 4 ordinances on the agenda tonight. They're reflective of the Utility Board resolution and the summary information I've already given to the City Council. Sandra has a brief slideshow for you, and I also have Jeff Jacob, our attorney, and Scott from Baker Tilly available if there's any questions. So thank you, and without further ado, right, Sandra.
Good afternoon. So in early 2022, Lebanon Utilities committed to review our non-recurring fees. Baker Tilly was contracted to perform the study, and over the past probably 7 or 8 months, we've met with multiple staff members. We've met with the Lebanon Utilities Service Board Finance Committee. We met with the Utility Service Board in a couple of working sessions, and all that resulted in us with the final approval of the Lebanon Utility Resolution 2022-03 on August 3rd, 2022, which did update those non-recurring fees. And I want to stress that none of the base rates changed on any of the utilities, so it's only the non-recurring fees. And I'm going to just quickly go through those. For the telecommunications utility, the only change was the bad check charge went from $25 to $30. For the electric utility, we added a service trip for residential, $45, all other, $110. We added a non-payment fee for our 3-phase with a single point and multiple points at $195 and $290. Our bad check charge went from $15 to $30. Our tampering went from $20 to actual cost of the damage with minimum of $100 for residential and a minimum of $500 for all other users. Our after-hours fee went from $25 on weekdays and $35 on weekends to $85. We added a connection fee of actual cost of meter supplies, a meter-based charge to have the customer supply that instead of Lebanon Utilities. And then a smart meter opt-out program is also new. It's a $75 fee and then $15 per month. On the water utility, our inspection fee for residential changed from $50 to $65. For the main tie-in, or inspection fee with a main tie-in, it went from $100 to $160. We added service trips, residential $45, all other $130. Our non-payment fee went from $40 to $50. Our bad check charge went from $10 to $30. Same issue for tampering. We went from damages and lost revenue to actual cost, but we added that minimum of $100 and $500. We added an after hours of $50 per hour. We added in, well, no, bulk water we already charged for, and that was at the flow rate, and we kept that at the flow rate, but we added an administrative charge for that. For hydrant rental, we've always done the cost of the rental and then usage, and we added a daily fee to that because we have instances where we'll have somebody take out a hydrant and we don't get it back for 3 or 4 months. And then the availability fee went from $2,000 to $4,600. For the wastewater utility, our connection inspection fee went from $50 to $55 for residential, $100 to $165 if there's a main tie-in. We added a service trip, $45 for residential and $130 for all other users. The bad check charge went from $0 to $30. Tampering fee, damages and lost revenue went to actual cost with a minimum of $100 and $500 depending on the user type. Our after-hours fee we added for $40 an hour. We added a septic hauling fee for $3.70, or is it per 1,000 gallons. And then the availability fee changed from $1,700 to $4,800. So with that, obviously, you see that the biggest changes are the availability fees.
Can you go forward? I think you have a summary slide here, or go forward one more, I think.
Do what?
Can you go forward one more slide? I think you went back.
This way?
There you go, yep. Good, yeah, you're good.
Okay,
Yep.
I was just cleaning up on the fees
Okay.
themselves. So one thing I wanted to mention is like on the bad check charge, a lot of people say, hey, is that, if a bad check is written, is that $30 per utility? No, we only charge the bad check charge one time. So if somebody writes a bad check for 3 or 4 different services, it's only a one charge. But we do have some customers that are water only, or we have wastewater only customers, and we wanted to make sure that they got charged the same fee. So the biggest fee is the availability fee, so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the availability fees. So an availability fee is a charge to connect to a utility to pay for gaining access to the utility service. That's one definition. Another definition is it's a contribution of capital towards existing or planned future backup plant facilities necessary to meet the service needs of new customers to which those fees apply. Why are they needed? The purpose of the availability fee is to charge each new customer a proportional fee for consuming their share of utility resources. So from a Lebanon utility standpoint, we're a not-for-profit, and our rates are set up to recoup our operating costs and provide a small portion of funds for additional capacity and then for capital. So as the city grows, each new customer consumes available water and available wastewater, which then decreases, and we have to add that additional capacity. And the availability fees offset the cost to the current customers. So availability fees can be used to serve new customers for any capital improvements that contribute to serving new customers, or any types of projects that increase capacity. What they can't be used for is any of our operational costs. So whenever we get availability fees in, we do keep these funds separated. We only spend them for the purposes that we're allowed to spend them for. We cannot use them for wages, benefits, maintenance, inventory, chemicals, or anything like that. When calculating the availability fees, there's 2 components. There's a buy-in component, which is normally the first component, and it's pretty straightforward. It's your current asset value, net of your debt, divided by your number of EDUs. So that would be the amount of money that somebody would need to buy into our current system. The second set of that calculation is the incremental cost component. And what that is we look at all of our future expansion projects and the additional EDUs that would be needed to support that additional flow. Those 2 numbers together end up being what you see as the availability fee. So for the water utility, I have listed for you what was used to calculate that incremental cost component. And that's the Grant Street for 2022, Grant Street water main improvements, well improvement and rehab. For 23 through 27, additional water source, Indianapolis Avenue Phase 3, well improvements over the next 5 years, and then South Street water main improvements. For the wastewater utility, in 2022, we have South State Road 39, lift station and sewer gravity, wastewater treatment plant raw sewage pump replacement. And then the bigger items for 23 through 27 are the Business Park Regional Lift Station, South State Road 39 Local Lift Station, Southeast Gravity Trunk Sewers, Reese Park Lift Station Phase 2, North State Road 39 Gravity and Sewer and Lift Station, and the WWTP Oxidation Ditch Pipe Upsize, and then North State Road 39 Gravity Sewer and Lift Station Upsize. So what's important to note about those is we really only can base those on what we know today. So we can look at those costs, we can estimate those costs, but it's based on what we know today. We all know that these projects fluctuate yearly, and they can fluctuate greatly depending upon city growth or which direction the utilities are going. So because these numbers can fluctuate so greatly, the Lebanon Utility Service Board has requested that I do recalculate these numbers annually in April, May, and if there's any kind of significant change at that time, I would bring those numbers back to City Council for review. So with that, I think Scott was going to add a little bit onto the calculation piece.
Scott, before you jump up here real quick, Sandra, talking about the hydrant fee, the $20 per day hydrant fee, explain that to me.
So if somebody took one of our hydrant meters out, we would charge...
Like it was a car or something like that?
Do
Or
what?
do you mean by take it out? Like,
So a contractor.
okay,
So somebody takes a hydrant meter out and hooks up to one of our fire hydrants. So we charge them a deposit that's refundable. So we refund that deposit back to them, but a lot of times we might not get those back for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So the per day fee is just an incentive for them to use it for what they need it for and then get that back to us.
okay. So it's not something the city would pay?
No.
Okay.
No, it is not something the city would pay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott, now, sorry.
Sorry.
Just a couple of things to add real quick. The fees have been calculated using standard methodologies that are approved and used in municipalities across the state. So it has been a bit of a process. It's been a number of months that we've worked through this and looked at the cost that the utilities incur to provide these types of services. So the fees are all based on those costs that are incurred. There was a new piece of legislation that was adopted earlier this year by the legislature that changed how the availability fees themselves were calculated, and so these proposed fees, before you take that into account, it requires the elimination of any contributions in aid of construction that the utilities have received over time. So it, in effect, reduces the proposed fee, and so that calculation, or the calculations incorporate that. Other than that, I think, Sandra, I think you covered it well. And
Wait, so
I guess
Scott,
one
say
final
that again on
thing,
the, say that again on the legislation, you said if a contractor contributes, it's an automatic deduction?
Yeah, so to the extent that the utilities have received a grant from either state or federal sources, or if, take a main extension, for example, if a developer has contributed funds to the utility for that main extension, then the value of that contribution is eliminated from the calculation of the availability fee. Kind of along the same lines as we also subtract out any outstanding debt, because we don't want to double count. So if we're recovering dollars through the monthly rates and charges for debt payments, we don't want to also recover those same dollars on the availability fee side. On the contribution side, if those assets had been given to us, then we really shouldn't be recovering a dollar value for those, because we weren't out anything for it.
Okay, thank you.
And then one quick thing on the electric, I don't think that you mentioned, whatever action you take on electric would still need to go to the Utility Regulatory Commission for approval through a 30-day filing process after we get through this process.
Yeah, and Jeff does have that written into the ordinance. I think they're all effective upon approval except for the electric, and it's effective upon the approval of the Regulatory Commission. So we just added 2 quick slides that were prepared for us by Baker Tilly and Scott Miller, just to kind of show where we're at. And on the water utility, you can see there that it's not in yellow, but we are at $2,000 currently. Puts us a little ahead of the field, and going to the new rates at $4,600, where that will put us. And then same thing for the wastewater utility. The first yellow one is where we are now at $1,700, and then the second yellow line would be $4,800, which is where this would put us. So I'm going to just summarize really quickly, and then I think Jeff Jacob had something he wanted to add. So in summary, the availability fee is to charge each new customer a proportional fee for consuming their share of those utility resources. Regardless of whether you're a homeowner or a major corporation, you would only pay for what you use. Funds can be saved. We have done that in the past for larger projects. They can also be used on an annual basis to cover those same capacity projects, as long as it is for increased capacity or new customers. Without the availability fees, our current customers will pay for developer growth with increased rates. So with that, did you?
Yeah, just Good evening. My name is Jeff Jacob. I'm the attorney for Lebanon Utilities. I did want to make one or two comments. Just to clarify any confusion, you would have received in your packets Resolution 2022-03, and that is the resolution from the utility board that approves the schedule, basically the summary that you would have seen this evening in the presentation from Sandra. That is then reflective of 4 ordinances, electric, water, wastewater, and telecom that you have before you this evening. So those fees have then been incorporated into the old ordinances, as well as some cleanup and combination of some of those documents, hoping to get us into limiting the number of working ordinances that dictate what our rates and terms are. So that's what you have in front of you this evening, is that summary of rates from the utility board. That's the recommendation that is then spelled out in the 4 ordinances. Then one other comment I did want to make sure that was made before you this evening is that, you know, the tendency, of course, is always to want to know where Lebanon stands with any rate or with availability fees. The point I wanted to make is showing that information to you this evening. The utility is not a market-based organization, and while those are instructive and informational only, I would encourage the City Council to make any decision it has relative to these rates and charges, especially availability fees, which is the big ticket item, based upon the Baker-Tilly analysis as well as other experience the board may bring. But we're not a market-based, we can't go out and say, hey, we want to be this much, be a little higher than this community or a little lower. That's not the way those fees are calculated. I would encourage you not to use that type of analysis in making your decisions in the coming weeks. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question real quick before we, under the water, actually this may be more for Scott actually. Under the water availability fee, there's a big number in there, the $30 million for water sourcing. As the council knows, there's currently discussions with the state, maybe assisting us with the water sourcing. What does that number become if that $30 million project is removed from that availability fee total?
And with that, I will squarely step away from the
Yeah, I thought you would real quick, yep.
Retreat here to my seat,
So we could calculate what that is for you. I don't have it right at my fingertips. But one thing to keep in mind, and you know, we did have discussions about that very issue, and because there isn't anything in writing at this point, it was determined to go ahead and leave that amount in for now. As Sandra pointed out, the fee will be recalculated annually based on the request of the board. But whether or not the water ends up getting here for free, there likely are still going to be improvements that are necessary to be able to treat that water potentially. So just keep that in mind. We can, you know, between now and your next meeting, we can calculate what that would be without the 30 million in there, and we'll circulate that to the council so that you have that.
I just try to understand how much of that fee is that water sourcing projects. I think that's probably the big swing of it.
Yep,
So.
Understand. It is a big number, definitely. So yeah, we'll calculate that and we'll distribute that to the council.
Yeah. Any questions from council? Nothing? Go ahead, Ed.
There's no questions. I had one thing, Sandra may have mentioned it, but the last time the availability fees were changed was 18 years ago. So even if you're just, it's not, as Jeff would point out, it's not the right way to look at it, but if you're just looking at CPI increase in it, we would still be very close to the numbers we're talking about here of a very big, you know, a large sizable increase, because we're a little overdue in updating these fees. Just wanted to highlight that, so.
You good? Any other final thoughts from council? Any general public comment?
My name's Aaron Smith. I'm a Lebanon resident. Is it correct that there will be a public hearing on September 12th regarding this matter?
Correct.
I'll make my comments then. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Any additional public comment? Okay. All right, so, so we're actually looking at items C, D, E, and F here for everyone. That item B was an incorrect addition, so I apologize for that. I guess we'll just knock these out one at a time. So, Rob, I guess ordinance 2022-21, revised schedule for non-recurring fees and charges for the electric utility. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and I would just like to reiterate what Mr. Smith asked. There will be a public hearing at the next council meeting on September 12th, and also what Mr. Jacob indicated about concerning what this council should consider on the availability fees. As everyone knows, Baker Tilly provided a report that addresses and outlines the basis for the availability fees, which you have. So with that, there's a lot here, and to the extent you have any questions, I know we have others that have already spoken, so I'll try to hit the highlights and go from there. So first reading ordinance 2022-21 concerns the ordinance with respect to the electric utility. The city owns and operates through its utility service board, which is defined as the board, the electric utility known as Lebanon Utilities. Again, for the purpose of providing safe, reliable, and efficient electric service in and around the city pursuant to Indiana Code. This council, based upon recommendations from the utility board, periodically evaluates, changes, and readjusts its fees, as been described already. The electric utility is subject to the jurisdiction of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, that's defined as the commission. The existing rates and charges for the electric service provided by the Lebanon Municipal Electric Utility were placed into effect following the approval of the commission under cause number 44142 on September 12th, 2012, and cause number 50535 on June 28th, 2022. Whereas the board, based in part upon the advice of its financial advisor, Baker Tilly, has adopted Resolution 2022-03, recommending to this council various adjustments to the non-recurring fees and charges, again, that Mr. Jacob addressed. Whereas neither the board nor the city council seek to adjust the electric rates, only the non-recurring fees and charges specified in Appendix C. And I'll just flip through that. Appendix C is in Section 4. Again, it's been addressed. You go down through there, there's the return check charge, the meter deposit, the late fee, the connection fee, the non-payment fee, various fees that are all indicated in there, as well as what the fees are for the residential user and all other users. And then you get into Section 5, and Section 6 and 7 discusses the provisions of the ordinance and that they'll take effect upon the approval of the Indiana Regulatory Commission after its adoption and publication required by law.
Thank you, Rob. Any further comments, discussion from council? Okay, ordinance 2022-21 has been read on first reading. Again, we'll take that up at our next meeting, September 12th. Next ordinance 2022-22, revised schedule of non-recurring fees and charges for the water utility.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Again, this ordinance 2022-22 amends ordinance numbers 2022-12, 2018-06, 2010-10, 2003-10, 1999-8, 80-12, 79-18, 79-1, and 78-24. Again, establishing a schedule of non-recurring rates and charges collected for the use and services provided by Waterworks Utility of the City of Lebanon. Again, this city owns and operates through its utility service board a water utility known as Lebanon Utilities for the purposes of providing safe, reliable, and efficient water in and around the city. This council, again, based upon recommendations from the board, periodically evaluates changes and adjusts its fees. Whereas the board, based in part upon the advice of its financial advisor, Baker Tilly, has adopted Resolution 2022-03, recommending to this council various adjustments to the non-recurring fees and charges. This council has caused notice of a public hearing set forth on the charges that will be advertised. Again, that'll be heard at the next, or the public hearing will be addressed at the next council meeting. And therefore, this council finds that the proposed modifications to the city's non-recurring fees and charges should be enacted. Again, these will be amending the ordinances numbers that I addressed. Again, this is several pages. The schedule of water rates and charges are outlined in section 1. I won't go through every one of those, and it adjusts, again, whether you're a residential user and other, or non-residential users. Section 2 addresses the non-recurring fees and charges. Again, the non-payment fee, the late fee, the return check charge, meter deposits. Section 3 and 4, again, address that these will be reviewed on each calendar year, and if there's anything inconsistent with the prior ordinances, which one will control, and this would be effective upon its adoption in any publication required by law.
Thank you, Rob. Any further discussions, comments, or council? Okay. Again, second reading, next meeting, September 12th. Next up, ordinance 2022-23, revised schedule of non-recurring fees for the wastewater utility.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, ordinance 2022-23 amends ordinances 2015-7, 2010-07, 05-09, 03-11, 99-3, and 1991 SCW-5 that establishes a schedule of non-recurring rates and charges collected for the use and services provided by the wastewater works utility of the city of Lebanon. Again, the city owns and operates through its utility service board a wastewater utility known as Lebanon Utilities. This council, again, based upon recommendations from the utility board, periodically evaluates changes and adjusts its various fees and rates. The board, based in part upon its advice from its financial advisor, Baker Tilly, has adopted Resolution 2022-3 recommending to this council various adjustments to the non-recurring fees and charges. Again, this council will cause notice of a public hearing that will be at the next council meeting. Council finds that the proposed modifications to the city's existing non-recurring fees and charges should be enacted. Again, several pages. I won't go through each of these specifically, but section 1 addresses the availability fees that was highlighted to us earlier, as well as the connection inspection fees, the service trip fees, after-hours fees, and in 5, section 2 deals with the monthly base charges. Section 3 discusses some treatment flow rate. Section 5, again, discusses the non-recurring fees and charges that have been highlighted to us in the presentation, dealing with the late fee, return check fee, the wastewater deposit, and again, outlines each of these, as well as system tampering charge. Section 6 addresses that each of these rates and charges will be reviewed each year. Section 7 deals with conflicts, and again, lastly, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption and any publication requirements.
Okay. Any comments from council? Again, they'll be up for second reading at our September 12th meeting. And last one, ordinance 2022-24, scheduled non-recurring fees and charges for telecommunications utility.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2022-24 amends ordinance numbers 08-09, 07-11, 05-07, and 04-04, establishing a schedule of non-recurring rates and charges collected for the use and services provided by the telecommunications utility of the city of Lebanon. Again, this city owns and operates through its utility service board, the board, a telecommunications utility known as Lebanon Utilities. Whereas this council, again, based upon recommendations from the board, periodically evaluates changes and readjusts various fees and rates. The board, based in part upon its advice from its financial advisor, Baker Tilly, adopted Resolution 2022-03, recommending to this council various adjustments to the non-recurring fees and charges. Again, this council will cause notice of public hearing that will be set forth at the next scheduled council meeting. Whereas this council finds that the proposed modifications to the city's existing non-recurring fees and charges should be enacted. Again, several pages that have been provided to us, to you, in Section 1 addresses the various fees that are set forth. That is several pages. Again, we get to Section 2, that the following rates and charges, again, are adopted based upon the telecommunication divisions, as well as internet-based fees. It also talks about the commercial service. Section 3 deals with the various other charges for commercial and residential customers for fiber optic facilities. Section 4 deals with charges for commercial and residential customers for co-location space in the telecommunication divisions. Service rooms. Section 5 deals with the non-recurring charges that, again, have been highlighted to us. The disconnect fee, the same account reactivation fee, the return check fee, the late charge fee. Section 6 deals with definitions. Section 7 deals with rate schedules. Section 8 deals with the application for contract for service. Section 9 deals with further rate schedules and character of service. Section 10 addresses termination of service. Section 11 deals with the payment for service. Section 12 deals with taxes and fees. Section 13 discusses refusal or discontinuation of service. Section 14 then goes into restoration of those services, and Section 15 addresses various division equipment and customer-owned equipment. Section 16 deals with unlawful or illegal use of services and facilities. And Section 17 and 18 address some legal requirements, including collections of delinquent accounts. And Section 19 has a catch-all. Again, these will be reviewed each year. And Section 20 and 21 address the provisions of the ordinance, which will take effect upon the approval, upon its adoption, any publication requirements.
Thank you, Rob. Need a bottle of water? You good? Good. Okay. Mr. Lake, any questions, concerns?
I got one question.
Good, Dick.
Should we do something with this resolution? Should we?
No, we don't need to.
Do our minutes or something like that, or?
I think, as Mr. Jacob indicated, it was provided to this council, and it could be noted in the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there was just some confusion. I think Kelly got sent the resolution, and she's used to putting all the resolutions on the agenda, so I think she just didn't understand that it was actually the utility board resolution that they had already adopted that we're not taking action on, so.
Okay.
But, I mean, we can acknowledge that we received their
Okay.
adoption of it, so. Okay, again, ordinance 2022-24 will be up for second reading at our September 12th meeting. Thank you, council. Thank you, council. Okay, next item up.
Sorry.
Good, Sarah, sorry. Nope.
Is there any way that we could get that list of all the upcoming projects that they use to calculate the availability fees? Because I know we got a PowerPoint about a month ago that talked about a bunch of stuff. I didn't see, that list wasn't in that, was it? I don't remember seeing that list.
No, I don't think it was listed out, but I just sent the PowerPoint over to Tanya so that she could distribute that out to
Awesome.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, next item up is Resolution 2022-20, LFD Station 12 requesting additional funding from LIT for exterior repairs. And we have Deputy Chief Wyrie here tonight.
Good evening, Council. I believe the council received an email from Chief Batts on August 4th, kind of outlining what we were looking at. Over the last few years, we've noticed that the exterior ephes, or stucco for better terms, at Station 12 is starting to deteriorate. And we've made numerous repairs in the 21 years that it's been there to make it forward, plus then got it repainted a couple times in that time frame, but it's just beyond repair. We've received we tried to receive 3 quotes from Scott Construction, Vickery Construction, and we did receive a quote from Caldwell Investments in the tune of what we've got in the resolution to replace it with a hardy plank siding. It's a pre-finished material that comes with a 15-year warranty on the finish. So what he would be doing is removing all of the stucco with the exception of the column right out front that has the design in it. For some reason, that area right there has stayed intact. But he'll be removing all of that and then putting the new hardy plank siding on. So that's what the project entails.
Any questions for Deputy Chief Wyrie? Okay. This resolution does have a public hearing, but I'll have Rob read the resolution first.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Resolution 2022-20 is for an additional appropriation. Whereas at times it becomes necessary to appropriate additional funds within the approved budget as contemplated and authorized by Indiana Code. It has been determined it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was originally appropriated in the annual budget. Whereas all additional appropriations require a public hearing, of which this council has served notice. Therefore, Resolution 2022-20 is to be appropriated for repairs to the exterior of LFD Station 12. The following additional sums of money are appropriated out of Fund 2240-Lit Public Safety, and that is in the amount of $57,950.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. This time then I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2022-20. If you have any public comments, please step forward. Please state your name for the record as well. Seeing no sign of movements, I will close the public hearing on Resolution 2022-20. Any further discussion, comments from council? Okay. We'll entertain a motion then to approve Resolution 2022-20.
I move we approve Resolution 2022-20 in the amount of $57,950.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second from Morris. Where's it? Right, Morris? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That resolution is adopted unanimously. Thank you, council. Okay.
Thank you, council.
All right, next up, Ordinance 2022-26. Council to consider rezone for 552, 554, 600, and 650 South State Road 39. This ordinance on first reading. Ben?
Good evening, council members. I'll just give a quick overview here. I know we had a lot of information in front of you already this evening, so we'll do these pretty quickly. I think the overhead is on. We'll try to do the old-fashioned method here. This is the site in question. I think the most prominent user in this area is Donaldson's Chocolates, and actually they were the ones that came to us with this idea. Certainly with this area changing over the next several years with the construction of the Fieldhouse project and all the folks that's going to bring to the area, they have ideas for additional investments on their property to try to just increase their visibility and create some additional traffic to their site, knowing that there's going to be a lot more traffic to that area. This property right now is zoned planned business industrial, so it actually primarily doesn't permit the types of commercial and retail uses that they're proposing to do here. And so they came to us with some of their ideas about reinvesting in this property. Felt like it was best to go ahead and rezone this to a commercial zoning district to really just facilitate their reinvestment that they're proposing in the property to bring additional commercial retail uses here. This does, in addition to the property owned by the Donaldson family, it also to the south there is an additional property owner, D&E Real Estate. That's the existing staffing office that's there. Again, they're really looking at trying to reinvest as a commercial retail property here as opposed to industrial property, and so they've also joined in with the rezone and are looking to rezone this from planned business industrial to planned business commercial, again, to facilitate some of those reinvestments they're looking at coming up over the next several years as this area changes and the field house gets constructed and people start visiting this area. So that's a quick overview of this. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Ben, is there a timeline? Is there a reason, like, do they need this done faster than before? Or?
No specific need right now. I know they're starting to put together some concepts for some investments out there. They went ahead and just decided to go ahead and do the rezone now, so it was in place. So by the time they're ready to make those investments, they don't have to worry about this step. So no reason that it would need to go any faster than typical.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Ben? Good. Brent?
Yeah, Ben, just give me the high-level overview, since I don't have the UDO in front of me. What's the difference between PBI and PBC?
The biggest difference is it no longer allows all the industrial users, which we don't expect on this property anyway, and then it adds additional commercial retail uses that aren't typically permitted in the PBI district. So it kind of shifts the pendulum a little bit more towards commercial retail and away from industrial. They're looking at doing some expansions of the Donaldson chocolate. They're looking at some other potential retail options there just to bring more traffic to that area. So the pendulum swings more to the commercial retail uses as opposed to the industrial.
Any further questions for Ben? Any public comment concerning this? Okay. Rob, I'll have you read ordinance 2022-26.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-26 concerns the rezoning of property and amending the zoning map of the city of Lebanon. Whereas the petitioners GRD Properties LLC and D&E Real Estate LLC filed an application for rezone before the City of Lebanon Plan Commission, again seeking to rezone approximately 3 acres, property that's located at 552, 554, 600, and 650 South State Road 39, and which is described in Exhibits A and B, from the Planned Business Industrial Zoning Classification to Planned Business Commercial Zoning Classification. Pursuant to Indiana Code, the City of Lebanon Plan Commission conducted a public hearing on August 15th, 2022, and voted 8-0 to send a favorable recommendation of the rezoning petition of the property and certified its recommendation to this body on August 16th, 2022. Whereas pursuant to Indiana Code, this council has considered the application and the recommendation of the City of Lebanon Plan Commission and finds as follows. The petitioners GRD Properties LLC and D&E Real Estate LLC are the owners of the property. The petitioner seeks to have the property, again comprised of approximately 3 acres, located 552, 554, 600, and 650 South State Road 39, again, that's described in Exhibits A and B, rezoned from Planned Business Industrial to Planned Business Commercial. This council has paid reasonable regard to the applicable comprehensive plans, the current conditions, and character of the current structures and uses in each district, and the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adopted. That from and after this date, the official zoning map of the City of Lebanon shall be changed to rezone the subject property, again, from Planned Business Industrial to Planned Business Commercial.
Thank you, Rob. That ordinance has been read on first reading. Again, we'll take that up at our September 12th meeting next time. Next will be ordinance 2022-27. Council to consider rezone for 1121 North Lebanon Street. This ordinance is also on first reading.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We'll pull up the aerial photo here. This is 1121 North Lebanon Street, rezone that's requested before you here tonight. If you may recall, I'm trying to think, probably about a year ago or so, the property just to the north, which is Dr. Cashione's office, came before you for a rezone. It was also zoned residentially. This is an area that's kind of transitioned over the years. There's actually only one residential structure remaining that's actually being used for a residence right now. It's kind of an area where you go from the south where it's more primarily residential, and when you get north, it gets primarily commercial. So this is an area that's kind of an area of transition, and a number of these residential structures have actually been converted to non-residential uses, like Dr. Cashione's office to the north. This is another one here where it's no longer being used as a residence. Actually, Dr. Cashione, as part of an LLC, owns this property also. He's got some tenants looking at it that would be more office, commercial related. I think he's got a hair salon that's looking to go in here. This is another situation here where right now it's zone SF2, a single-family residential classification, but it's not something really that in the future is going to be used for residential uses. So we've talked again with him, same as we did for his office, looking to create some additional flexibility such that he doesn't have to come back and ask for approvals every time the use changes if it's something non-residential. This will allow him to put a tenant in there that's appropriate for that structure and not have to come back for approval every time to do that. So this is a request to rezone us from SF2, which is a single-family residential zoning classification, to the planned business commercial zoning classification. Part of our discussion last time was, what if somebody in the future decides they want to do a use there that we don't particularly care for? At least the one thing that I would say is this is only a quarter acre of property. It's not a very large property. Other than reusing the existing structure for light retail commercial uses like hair salons, there's really nothing else you can do with this property. If they were to try to redevelop it, they'd have to meet the PBC setback standards, and this property, you couldn't even build a structure on there and meet PBC standards. So really, the only thing this property could be used for is to repurpose the existing structure there for some sort of commercial use. So I don't expect that there's going to be any desire in the future to try to redevelop this with some sort of undesirable commercial use. But again, this is an area where it's already, if you look north of there, it's already commercial uses, an area of the CVS and some of those other more heavy commercial uses. So that is the request that's before you here tonight, rezone from SF2 single-family residential to planned business commercial. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions from council? Sarah?
Ben, is the front, the very front part of the property that borders the road, is that right of way by the city? I'm just concerned with parking, where anybody would be parking on the parcel of land.
Yeah, that's one thing we've talked about with the applicant before any of those users go, and we got to figure out what sort of parking needs they have. I would expect or anticipate that we're looking at some sort of extension like you see to the north down to the south to add parking here. We can't let that transition to commercial happen without appropriate parking. So there are other improvements that'll have to be made to this property before something could go in there.
Any further questions? Dr. Kishon, see you in the audience tonight. Anything you want to say? Okay, all right. Easy enough. Yeah, any questions for Dr. Kishon? Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks for coming. All right, Rob, I'll have you read that now.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-27 again concerns an ordinance rezoning property and amending the zoning map of the city of Lebanon. Whereas the petitioner, SL Enterprise LLC, filed an application for rezone before the City of Lebanon Planning Commission, seeking to rezone approximately .25 acres in Center Township, and the property is located at 1121 North Lebanon Street, and it's more particularly described in Exhibits A and B. And it's from single-family residential SF2, zoning classification to planned business commercial. Whereas pursuant to Indiana Code, the City of Lebanon Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on August 15th, 2022, and voted 8-0 to send a favorable recommendation of the rezone petition of the property, and certified its recommendation to this body on August 16th, 2022. Whereas pursuant to Indiana Code, this council has considered the application and recommendation of the City of Lebanon Planning Commission and now finds as follows. The petitioner, SL Enterprise LLC, is the owner of the property. The petitioner seeks to have the property, again comprised of .25 acres more or less, located at 1121 North Lebanon Street, described in Exhibits A and B, rezoned from single-family residential SF2 zoning classification to planned business commercial. This council has paid reasonable regard to the applicable comprehensive plans, current conditions and character, and current structures and uses in each district. From and after this date, the official zoning map of the City of Lebanon shall be changed to rezone the subject property from SF2 zoning classification to planned business commercial zoning classification.
Thank you, Rob. Ordinance has been now read on first reading. Again, we'll take that up at our next meeting. As you know, September 12th.
And I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ben, you answered this when we annexed or changed the zoning on the one north. So that on the picture, is that classified as an alley or a street in front?
To the front of it, it's actually a street.
A street?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look just to the north there, is that an actual exit onto camp?
No, it's actually blocked off. You can't exit to the north there. I think that was on purpose because it's so close to the intersection.
Okay. Okay, I couldn't remember how that was there. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Any further questions, comments? Okay. Again, we'll take that up at our next meeting. Council, I appreciate, I know it's kind of a lengthy agenda tonight, a lot of stuff being read, but obviously a lot of work has to be done. So, any other new business from council?
Me?
Me or me?
Huh?
You or I?
Okay. I just would like to just verbally give a slight report of a meeting that the mayor and Councilman Wheat and I was in with the IECD, talking about water and wastewater. So a lot of details, but it was very informative, and appreciate that we were included in that meeting. So I think what they presented, is changing, but it does tell us that we have a good plan going forward. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that?
The only thing I might add is they did say they want to start meeting with us on a regular basis. I think the message got through that they need to work with us. And I feel like that was the whole point of this meeting and the future meetings, that we need to be in the loop of what's going on. So I feel confident that they understand that and they want to do what they can. But overall, as Councilman Jones said, it's almost mind-boggling, but they have a good plan to bring a lot of water and to treat wastewater coming out of this site. So we'll see how it unfolds.
Yep. Any other new business? Okay, move on to claims then. We're going to entertain a motion concerning the claims.
I make a motion, we pay the claims.
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
More signatures to pay our bills. Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, claims are approved. Any further announcements or discussion? Any general public?
I do have one other thing here. So I was talking with Kevin. I'm not going to put Kevin on the spot, but since the Whit Road project's in my district, been getting a lot of heat for that, and it's being run through the social media a lot, but it'll get done, and we'll have a good bridge in the end. So patience is needed, but appreciate Kevin feeling some of those hurts, I guess, a little bit.
Kevin, do you want to give like a 2-minute, I know you gave it a Board of Works, but just for the council, so they know kind of ballpark timeline, and also the damages that they're paying us?
Well, I'm cautious to give timelines. This will be the 4th time I've given one, and the 3 previous have not proven to be correct. But as of last Thursday, we received an updated schedule from the contractor, which has a bridge opening date on there of 8/29, so a week from today. There's a lot of work to be done in the next week. They are currently forming up bridge railings on the east side of the bridge. They are currently setting forms and string line for slip-forming curbs. Curbs are supposed to start on Wednesday. Curbs Wednesday, Thursday, wrapping up on Friday. They're scheduled then to drop back in on Saturday to pave the road. If all of that happens under that schedule, we would have at least a drivable surface to open on Monday. We're still a long way away from a completed bridge. And with the discovery that was made a couple of weeks ago that the bridge was effectively built 4 feet east of where it was supposed to go, meaning we don't have the width on the west side of the bridge for the trail that we wanted, we know the contractor is going to have to remobilize to build additional bridge sections to the west so that we can get the proper width to the bridge so that we can build our separated trail system. Who's the contractor again? The contractor is HIS. Yeah, so that's where we currently stand. So with the widening to the west, we will still have our 11-foot protected trail crossing the bridge. On the east side, we will no longer have a 6-foot sidewalk. We will actually have a 13-foot sidewalk. We don't need a sidewalk that large, but the bridge was moved 4 feet east, and we decided just to go ahead and finish the rest of the bridge out per the original plans. at some point in the future, that might be helpful that we have that additional width on that side of the bridge. You never know. One good thing is that will mean because the bridge railing is pushed out another 4 foot, we're beyond the 10-foot clear zone, so we would not have to install a guardrail on the east side of the bridge. So there's some other considerations that are actually working in our favor. The project actually has liquidated damages in the contract that we basically started charging on the 1st of August. I'm sure the contractor's going to make a claim to get a couple of those days back, but, right now we're 22 days into liquidated damages, not scheduled to be open until the 29th day. So there's roughly $29,000 coming back to us. Again, there's some issues with water main relocation that didn't happen per plan that they'll be able to get a couple of those days back, but they've not requested those formally to us at this time. So again, we're hoping that we have a drivable bridge open to traffic sometime on Monday, the 29th. Still be a lot of work to be done with finished grading, with trail construction, with widening the bridge, with sidewalks, with driveway approaches. So really the goal for Monday is just to get a drivable surface. It's going to still be very much a construction site for a few weeks after that, maybe months. I have no indication from the contractor when the additional bridge sections will be fabricated and on site for placement. But we have a plan to bring those in and continue to keep traffic open. I don't think we'll have to close down traffic fully to finish the rest of the bridge. But
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I believe I remember Councilman Wheat saying direct all the complaints to you. I think when we first did that. You don't remember that? Don't remember that? Okay.
Thank you for taking those, Morris.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments for council? Okay. Would entertain a motion then to adjourn.
Motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Again, our next city council meeting, September 12th at 7:15 PM. Have a great evening.